Ladies and gentlemen, we are live once again. Thanks for joining us this fine evening, May 8th of the year 2023. This is episode number 45. Again, Monday evening, episode 45. We are airing exclusively on Twitch and powered by StreamYard. Well, last week it was a trio, but we're back to a quartet tonight. Mr. Tommaso Wospil is back from the good, great country of Italy. Thomas, how was your trip while you're out across the pond over there?
It was great. It was great. Listen, probably the best part was I didn't have to watch the Yankees play. If they play night games, it happens at 2 in the morning, 1 in the morning there. So I just wake up and see they got slaughtered by some terrible pitcher and gave up a bunch of runs. So that was nice. Other than that, obviously the food, it's like unfair how good it is. Like you just go into places that just like look like the dumpiest little, like places that are literally in alleyways. And it's like, this is the greatest pasta I've ever had in my life, incredible. Been there once before, but this was like a much more immersive experience being there. And, I feel like I don't need to sell Italy. It's a place that I'm sure most people, if they haven't been, would love to go. But boy, is it great!
Yeah, it's definitely on
Tom
my
legally changed his name to Tommaso Wospil because that was amazing.
Listen, the only non-Italian on the panel here. I assume. I'm just gonna make some assumptions based on people's names.
I don't think Rivera. I mean, Rich is Italian, but Rivera doesn't exactly give it away that he's Italian.
Probably more Italian.
Good thing I know Rich is half Italian.
You got a couple of vowels on the top portion of the screen, and then you got a vowel on the bottom left, although it's a fraction, but you do got a vowel there, Rich, so I'll give you that.
Yeah. Well, United Nations over here. We love having it on the show here. All right, so we have a lot to talk about. Tonight's show is definitely going to be the roasting of New York baseball teams, to say the least.
Boy.
The Yankees are coming off a hard loss in a game that they had won, a series they had won, which I covered at length on the River Ave Rewind yesterday. And the Mets just lost to the Colorado Rockies. And that's just, again, another inexcusable.
Did any New York teams win since I was gone? I feel like none of them, including the Rangers, all the New York teams just lost.
It was bad. No, the only thing was the Knicks advanced, but now the Knicks can't seem to buy a win the last week or so. But they did advance, I think, while you were gone. Now they just can't buy another win.
There you go.
But yeah, it's been a rough week for sure. And I mean, we're going to go through the whole lineup here in a moment. I mean, we got the Queen's Gambit. We're going to be talking a lot of Mets. And for those of you who listened last week, it's almost going to be the reverse script in a sense, where last week's episode, I mean, we were talking about the Yankee struggles, what's happening with the team. And in that we'll be getting to that too in the Bronx is burning segment a little later in the show. But it's crazy how like the flip of a coin, the positive vibes with the Mets over the last 2 weeks since they came back from the West Coast, they've been stuck on the West Coast that trip. But more to come on that in a minute. We also do have the Fantasy Hot Corner, one of our good segments by guest host John Hernandez, who will be on the show a little later today for that segment. And we'll be ending it off with another fun segment of Trick of the Trade, where us and our guests on Twitter and Twitch will be trying to answer and see who will get that point for tonight's Trick of the Trade questions.
Yep, and the Bronx will certainly be burning because even though we'll be crapping on the Mets, we will be crapping on the Yankees too. Trust me.
There's a lot of crap tonight.
A lot of crap tonight. So we'll start off with the crap in Queens. The Queen's Gambit. The New York Metropolitans. 6-12 in their last 18 games. And the funny part is, if we're going to do a compare to contrast with Yankees Mets here, you could look at the Yankees side of things and no, things are bad. They're a last place team, and it has a lot to do with the players being hurt. And you look at the Mets side, and there's only 1 or 2 significant players hurt, but you have the general core of the team together. So what's going on in Queens, Joe, with the New York Metropolitans?
Yeah, it's rough sledding right now. I mean, we're kind of at the place that we've seen often. You get a good pitch in one day, and then you get no hit in to supplement that, and then the next day the pitching is terrible as it was yesterday, and the offense scores 6 runs, and you lose the game by 6 runs, or 7 runs. I don't even remember the final score. That's how bad it was. I shut it off early. I shut it off in the top of the 9th. But, the Mets have a problem right now. And the problem is underscored by the fact that their high-priced talent is underperforming. Lindor's not hitting. Alonso's not hitting. Marte's not hitting. Canna's not hitting. Verlander just got back. He's only pitched 1 game. He only gave up 2 runs. Okay, we'll see what he does this Wednesday. Scherzer's not pitching well. We have a lot of talent that is making a significant amount of money that is just not flat out performing up to the standard that they need to perform at. So it's not a simple solution. I would say the silver lining going forward is that these guys are not going to slump all year, probably not. And that when things start clicking and the Mets start playing better baseball, you're going to see the results of that. But right now, I mean, the only 2 guys hitting in the lineup are Nimmo, McNeil, and Beatty. That's it. And they're 3 lefties, so you can't bat them together. But it's a problem. The middle of the bullpen is a disaster, even though Ottavino and Robertson have been excellent. I control Drew Smith in there as well. But the Tommy Hunters, the Yacobonuses, the Rallies, those guys, I mean, there's not much trust in that bullpen outside the big 3 right now. And it's a problem.
Yeah, it seems like one day, like Joe alluded to a little bit before, one day there's a part of the team struggling, and if that part wakes up the following day, another part of the team crumbles when you think they're going to pick it up. And listen, the hitting coming into this season got a lot of criticism, rightly so, too, because the hitting is really, in addition to the starters being a little burnt out, Scherzer and Bassett, I'm looking at you specifically down the stretch last year, the hitting fell asleep in September, and they did not hit well against the Padres in that wild card series, with the exception of Game 2. And they did nothing, literally nothing, to improve that offense in the offseason. Now, obviously, Correa would have been like the big offensive pickup. That deal fell through. And then long term, it probably was a blessing in disguise. Don't get me wrong. But the one move, you put all your eggs in one basket, it didn't come to fruition. By the time that deal ended up falling apart, free agency was done. And you were left with the Tommy Phams and the Adam Duvalls of the world as the top tier hitting guys available on the market. And they went with the wrong option. Adam Duvall, granted, he's been hurt this year, but he would have been the better option. He's a better defensive player. I do think he's a better hitter. So you did nothing to improve your offense. You showed some promise with the kids. Beatty was up last year. You called him up against your biggest series of the season at that point against the Braves in the summer. And Beatty actually hit a home run in his first game. You called Alvarez up down the stretch, the last week of the season you're in a playoff fight for the division. And these guys are starting the year in the minors, and you're going with these guys like a Tommy Pham, like all these guys who they're not stars. Meanwhile, your prospects are hitting. They were red hot in spring training, with the exception of Alvarez. Alvarez didn't have the hottest of springs, but Beatty was red hot in spring training. He went down to AAA red hot. He's come up and he's been red hot. He's been one of the best hitters on the Mets right now since he came up. But then what happens? The hitting falls asleep. Then the pitching's doing all right. But then the pitching is terrible when you actually get some runs. The Mets right now, the Mets have been known for good pitching the last decade and a half. The Mets right now are bottom 10 in ERA. Their ERA for as a team is like 4.7. You want to talk about starting pitching, which has been the Mets' biggest strength this last decade? They're 35 games in the season. They have 5 quality starts. We're already at May 8th. We're 35 games in. You have 5 quality starts. Starting pitching lately, especially the last 2 weeks, more pronounced. They're not getting out of the first inning without giving up runs. I mean, even Verlander in his debut for this season gave up 2 solo shots. He actually looked good after that. Don't get me wrong. But it's a problem with the Mets. You're constantly playing back from behind. And when you have no power, you're a bottom tier team with power, and you're falling behind early, it's going to be hard to come back and win ball games unless everything is clicking. And then, of course, the one game it was clicking last week, Ottavino, who I do love, by the way, don't get me wrong, he blows the save. And it's like everything is going wrong for the Mets. When one thing does well, something else falters. And they got to wake up. They have to wake up. That's all I can say right now. They have to wake up.
Well, the philosophy in baseball is, when everyone's not doing their job at the same time, there's going to come a time when everybody's feeling it. And for this lineup right now, you mentioned a lot of those names that were struggling. One of the names that wasn't mentioned and shouldn't be mentioned because he's been great for the Mets this year has been Brandon Nimmo. Outside of him, Marte, Canna, even McNeil, who's he's hit or miss. The Mets have struggled offensively in a bad way, and the hope is these guys are going to come around at the same time, and that's going to mean a lot of victories on the left side of the column. I look at the team ERAs. Who would have thought the Nationals would have had a lower team ERA than the Mets at this point of the year? It's just wild to see. Tom, what do you got? You got comments on the Metsies over here?
Yeah, so I mean, Joe and Corey really hammered on a lot of the issues going on. The one, I guess, good thing you could say for the Mets and the opposite side for the Yankees is, the Mets are one game under 500, but they are currently third in the division, 7 back. Yankees one game over 500 and in last place, 10 games back. So the AL East, especially with the more balanced schedule, is just proving to be even harder, not having to beat up on each other as much, where it looks like the NL East is definitely easier at this point of the year. I know it's still early. Braves in first place. I know some teams have been a little better than you would expect. The Marlins are kind of tied with the Mets there, and like you only can expect some of these teams to really stick around. I know. Then looking ahead for the schedule for the Mets coming up, you got some games that you need to win. Same with the Yankees. Actually, we'll get to, I know the Yankees more later, but the Mets got what? You have 7 games coming up against
3 against the Reds and 4 against the Nationals.
Bad
I mean, for the Mets to make a statement, I mean, I'm seeing on the other side of it, the Mets have to win 6 out of 7 games.
Yeah,
I was going to say 5. I was say 5 and 2.
That kind of statement. I think it's got to be more, Tom. I think 6 out of 7 against these 2 teams.
That's just a lot to ask. I think if you just win both series, that's a tough ask.
Their end of May and June schedule is absolutely brutal to end the first half of the year. So and listen, don't get me wrong, the Mets have kind of played this game this year where they're playing up to the competition as kind of they showed when they walked into Dodger Stadium and they went to San Francisco. They played up to a better team schedule. Not that San Francisco is that good at the moment, but they played the Padres as well. So, they've been playing up to opponents, but they got a couple things got to happen. Their pitching has to solidify. Hopefully with Verlander and Scherzer back. I know Scherzer's dealing with a little bit of a shoulder issue, but hopefully with them in the rotation and that rotation being set a couple times through the rotation is going to get these guys back in line and get you some more quality starts. I expect to see that. I could see Verlander going 6 or 7 innings tomorrow. I think that's a big positive. But at the end of the day, if Lindor, Alonso, and Marte, if they're not hitting, there's nothing you can do. If Lindor and Marte are going to bat sub 220 for the year, you're done. You're done. They back up the truck. It doesn't matter what pitching comes around. It doesn't matter because those are irreplaceable guys that you cannot supplement. And if Alonso's going to try and hit the ball out of the ballpark every 2 seconds and bat to 230, I think he's batting at the moment.
He has to get ready for the Derby.
You got problems. I mean, for 2 things I think need to happen. I think we need to start seeing a restructure of the lineup. You have to put Nimmo and McNeil together. I know Buck's been reluctant to do that. He likes to have McNeil lower in the order because McNeil usually hits around 300. He generates traffic at the bottom of the order. But right now, Nimmo's the only one getting on base, and the only one who's going to be able to drive him in is McNeil. So I would have Nimmo 1, Lindor 2, McNeil 3, Alonso 4.
I'll be honest. I thought that all year, every time again, I watch a lot of Mets games. My wife's a Mets fan, so I watch a good amount of it. I don't understand why Jeff McNeil hits so low in the lineup. I really don't. Like, why would you not want him and Nimmo up top, get on base for the? I'd have him bat 1-2. I don't like the newer style. The Yankees are big proponents of it, of like having like your like a Judge hit 2. I think.
Yeah, I don't like it.
I like how like because Alonso usually hits 4. Like that's where you want to put those big power RBI guys, but
they have 4 players that could be easily leadoff hitters on other teams. So you can't lead off everybty there between McNeil, Nimmo, Marte, and Martinez are struggling, and even Lindor. Like these guys can lead off hitters.
I don't know. McNeil is a guy again who win a batting title. You put Nimmo up, get him up there first. I know he gets on base a lot. He walks. He can steal a bag. Then you have McNeil, and then you get those 2 guys on, and you let the big boys pop. I've never understood it. Again, I'm not as tuned in, obviously, as you two and other Mets fans. It just, to me, it just seems so obvious that like those 2 should be 1-2 in the lineup if they're both hitting.
No, I totally agree with you, Tom. And I think the only argument you can make against it, and it's not a valid argument, and I'm going to say why in a second, it's the lefty Nimmo McNeil. But I don't care about it with Nimmo, because Nimmo is pure contact, pure eye. And McNeil is basically the same type of player. And look at the splits. Jeff McNeil with his lefty-righty splits against lefties. He's hitting 262. It's not like he's one of those guys that could barely hit the Mendoza line versus a left-handed pitcher. 262 with an OPS of 735. That is not terrible by any means. It's actually pretty decent.
And if you don't want to do it against a lefty starter, okay. And if you're like worried about, a lefty coming in later in the game, I don't know. Like you have the bulk of the game is going to be with the starter anyway, most likely.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Exactly. So I don't care about the lefty thing. I don't care about it all. He should be at least 2 or 3 in the order. I don't mind having Lindor hit 2 either and putting McNeil 3, but McNeil should be 2nd or 3rd in this lineup, not hitting 5th or 6th, and sometimes hitting 6th. That's absurd.
Corey and Joe, I have a question for you before we move on to the next bit. So we did a poll on Instagram, and make sure to give us a follow at Empire State of Baseball on Instagram. We do our preview polls every Monday. And the question we had for our viewers is, who is to blame for the struggles of the Mets? And currently at 42% of the vote, pitching is there. But I do want to ask, because this one got a couple of votes, how much of this is on Buck?
I see. I don't think it's on Buck. I mean, listen, we can go in and every game we can criticize. I know people are going crazy about the rookies not being in the lineup every single day. But, Buck is the kind of guy who gets most out of his players over the course of a season. He works these rookies in when they're ready. He doesn't push them. He doesn't put too much pressure on. That's how he is. If you go back to the days where he was in Baltimore, he did the same thing. So I'm not that worried about this. This is a manager that won 101 games last year for the Mets. I'm not worried about Buck. All right. I know fans are frustrated and they're looking at fingers to point. But right now, it's just the fact that I wouldn't even single it to the pitching. I would just say your high-priced talent right now that you're paying, you can say Scherzer, Lindor, Marte. Those are the 3 highest-paid guys on the team right now are not performing. Period. End of story. They're not performing. And that's where the problem starts. You want to say, okay, Peterson's not doing well, but he was your 7th starter coming into camp. You don't expect him to have a 3.5 ERA. So I'm putting it on the big guys right now. I'm putting it on the Scherzer, who goes out, and every single time that we look for Scherzer to show up, he turns into Tom Glavine. That's what he's done ever since last year. And he cannot get that monkey off his back right now, because last year, the last memories fans have of him are giving it up to the Braves and giving it up to the Padres. And now they're turning around when the Mets need him and giving it up to whoever the hell he pitched against last week, the Tigers. So that's the problem right now. Lindor batting 215. That's the problem right now. Marte being lost on a milk carton somewhere. Nobody knows where he is. That's the problem. Yep. So until those guys start playing up to their standard, and I'll give Alonso a pass right now. He's got 10 home runs. I don't expect him to carry the lineup. He needs help. If Lindor and Marte start hitting, and they're hitting 3 and 5, that's going to take pressure off Alonso. But right now, Alonso's trying to kill the ball, and it's only Nimmo and McNeil, the 2 guys you signed to an extension last year, that are hitting. That's it.
Yep. No, exactly. And it's the hitters, it's the pitching. At the end of the day, these players have to perform. And the hate on Buck, I know he's getting a lot of hate in Mets Twitter world lately, and I completely disagree with it. I mean, outside of Terry Collins, look at the managers, and we discussed this last week, that you've had recently. Buck is clearly the best of them all. The players love him. He's great with the media. If we're going to blame anybody, and again, at the end of the day, it's got to be the hitters and the pitchers who got to get the job done, especially the pitching. Because that 2015 team, when they were struggling and miserable in the first half, at least they were in every game because the pitching was giving you 6-7 innings of 1 or 2 run ball every night. So you were in every game. The pitching right now, you're out of these games in the first or second or third inning. And the offense, you're not clicking enough to give you the confidence to keep watching. And people watch baseball because it's supposed to be a stress relief. You want to get away from the stress of the world and enjoy the sport. It's not entertaining at all when your team, you know, in the back of your mind is not going to make this comeback, and you still got 2 hours of baseball left to play because you've given up 3 or 4 home runs.
They drag you up and down the field for
It's crazy. But if you want to blame anybody in the organization, it's not Buck. It's got to be the front office with Billy Epler. What has he done and who has he brought in? I mean, granted, he re-signed Nimmo, but Nimmo is not an Epler guy. He brought in Max Scherzer. They're talking about Max Scherzer's dealing with an injury. They don't know if he's going to be healthy the rest of the year. He's pitching through an injury. You brought in Verlander. All right, granted, you had to replace DeGrom's talent, and he was probably the only guy available that's going to replace his talent. That's another 40-year-old guy. Marte, I loved Marte last year. He's not a young kid anymore. He's in his mid-30s. That's a guy who's meant to rely on.
That wasn't an Epler signing.
No, Epler signed. Epler brought him in.
Did Epler bring in Marte?
Epler brought in Marte. Because the
first Zach Porter guy?
Yeah, no. Porter was 2021. Marte debuted 2022. That was an Epler guy. The trade deadline last year was completely botched. And don't get me wrong, Vogelback hasn't been terrible. I know there's a lot of Vogelback hate. But the Mets needed something, and Vogelback wasn't it. The Ruff trade was one of the roughest trades I've ever seen in my life. So if you're going to blame anybody, it's Epler, because he has not brought in a single player who is going to make an all-star game, with the exception of maybe Nimmo, who we re-signed.
Here's my problem with that, Corey, and to the Met fans that are ready to fire Billy Epler. My question to you guys are, who did Epler miss on? We understand the Ruff trade wasn't good. We understand Holderman's doing well in Pittsburgh. I get that stuff. But who was traded and who was a free agent in this past year that Epler just whiffed on going after? Forget Judge. Forget Trey Turner. And Trey Turner's not even hitting well himself. Who did Epler miss on bringing in here? I can only go by the guys who were available and the guys who actually moved at the deadline.
Listen,
what was missed? I don't see where Epler could have improved this team drastically in the last 8 months, because I just don't see that key piece that moved that would have taken the Mets to the next level.
And that's what makes the difference between an average GM and a great GM. Because, Joe, you give us Cohen's checkbook, we could have done the same exact thing. We could have said, oh, Verlander, come here. I got $150 million for you. Come play for the Mets.
I get it.
Scherzer, here's $150 million. Me and you could be the GMs playing MLB The Show. It's exactly what Epler did. What makes a good GM is they know how to find the diamond in the rough. They know to talk to the organization, find those guys that the average person doesn't think of, and that guy ends up coming in and standing out. And that's why Billy Epler, I'm not saying he's a bad GM, he's an average GM, because you give me $150 million to sign Verlander, and I'm getting Verlander in Queens, and I have zero MLB managing experience, zero experience running a ball club, and I will do exactly what Billy Epler did.
Like I said, I don't see, at this particular moment, the move is not clear to me what Epler didn't do. So I listen, I get the Ruff thing, and I get not having Beatty up from day one, but that didn't matter because they were playing well without Beatty here. So I'm not getting on Epler's case, because there's no room on this roster at the moment to bring in a marginal player. Listen, I get we don't like Tommy Pham, but Tommy Pham's the 26th guy on the Mets on the bench. I can't go crazy about Tommy Pham making the difference for this team. you're gonna say that you'd rather have Duvall and you'd have what? You think you'd have 5
but
more
Joe,
wins?
you could also say Tommy. If it wasn't for Tommy Pham, you'd probably see Alvarez or Beatty up earlier in the year, and you wouldn't have
they don't
a
play
month delay on these two guys.
They don't play outfield though. That was a fourth outfield.
Neither does Pham. Pham was supposed to be a platoon DH with Vogelback.
They wanted it for flexibility, whether it's DH or outfield. They needed another person in that bench that could play outfield.
You want Aaron Hicks? We can send Aaron Hicks over. He's in town. He can just hop on, just hop over.
That's my problem with the Epler thing. Is I just don't see the move that happened since the trade deadline last year, where I say Epler missed. Why weren't we in on this guy? Why didn't we do anything with that? Because I just don't see who would you want? Wilson Contreras?
The only thing you could
the
really
Cardinals
put
just
out
benched
there.
him.
The only thing you could really put out there is that because the big market for the past 2 years has been the shortstops. It would have been convincing a shortstop as they were close with Correa to playing third, and that's the only
you
big
can't
move
blame
you
him
could
at
have.
Correa.
You could I'm not saying you can. I'm just saying that if you want to say where could you have missed, it's giving another basically blank check to any number one of those shortstops and say, listen, we want you to play third. But even that's also not always as easy as.
I actually would.
I'm just saying that's the only thing you really could say. Like, hey, where's the other big name you could have done?
Well, forget about the free agent signings. I mean, the Mets have a lot of prospects that are going to have a hard time finding homes on the major league level over the next couple of years. Why don't you try to make a trade for somebody who could help you in the major league level right now on the offensive side?
Yep, exactly. You get rid of excess talent at positions you're deep in for positions you need. And that's what I hated about last year's trade deadline, because the bullpen was weak. Outside of Diaz, and Ottavino was good, but he wasn't as good in the first half. You traded the one guy, Holderman. Now, granted, Holderman did nothing in the second half of last season, but he leads the league in holds today. He leads the league in holds today, and he was actually looking good in the brief time he was with the Mets last year. And you traded away talent at a weak position to barely improve. You actually made your DH worse by bringing in Ruff. But I want to make one more comment. I know we got a lot of show left too, but I actually have a bold statement. I think Brody Van Wagenen was a better GM. And the reason I say that is because he tried to do too much with the little budget he had available. If you give Brody the budget you have under Cohen, Brody made things happen. I mean, granted, you could say trading Kelenic for Robinson Cano was terrible, trading an elite prospect for Cano. But Kelenic took a couple years to pan out. We'll see if he still pans out. Knock on wood, he's doing good this year. But you brought in the best closer in baseball in that trade. At least Brody tried to make things happen. He had the stones to have Alonso start on opening day. He could not be the more opposite of Epler. You had a young player at a position that was weak come in, earn the job in spring training, and reward it. By doing that, you're telling your players, if you fight and you perform well, you have a spot on this team. Not Brett Beatty, who's hitting 500 in spring training, and it took him 5 weeks to get the call. He's the opposite of Billy Epler. If Brody had this budget, he would be a better GM. End of story.
Well, goddamn, this is what happens when Corey has more than 60 seconds on Instagram to talk about the New York Mets.
Oh, my God. Corey went full Joe.
Brody also
never go full
Andy Rodriguez for Joey Lucchesi. Don't forget that. And Andy Rodriguez is now, a top 15 prospect in baseball. So
rough stuff. Well, anyway, how to check out Corey's reels and Joe's reels on the Mets Minute on Instagram. What's the best way to do that, Joe?
You can go to our Instagram page and follow Empire State of Baseball. You can follow Corey at Corey Favs, myself at JR Pugs, Rich at Rich J Rivera, and Tom at T Wospil on Instagram. You check out our post-game recaps when they go up, and hit that like button when you see them, and feel free to comment.
The ESB Mets Minute, hosted by Corey and Joe. The River Ave Rewind, hosted by Tom and your boy. When the Yankees lose games and we go nuts, but more on the Yankees in a little bit. But now we will turn it over to the Fantasy Hot Corner, presented by Jonathan Hernandez. And I'm glad, Joe, you touched on Instagram, because if you go to our Instagram, you can check out John's Fantasy Hot Corner and his takes on fantasy, his tips for those owners out there that are struggling for a good pickup. He mentions 2 great players. So make sure to check out Instagram and go to his store and go to our story, and you can get John's audio, get to hear his lovely voice and Howdy, because until we find out a better way to listen, to have John's audio come through the show, I'm just going to present it as if I was Jonathan Hernandez. So Tom, the Fantasy Hot Corner player spotlight is Marcus Stroman. Now, Marcus Stroman off to a great start to begin his 2023 campaign, a 2.18 ERA for him, a 1.5 WAR. That Cubs rotation looking pretty nice to start this season. You got the veteran Stroman and Drew Smyly and Justin Steele, another big name talked about. But how about the ex-Met in Marcus Stroman? What do you think of John's pick here, Thomas?
Well, listen, he didn't pick a current Met. He did pick an ex-Met, though. So I feel like a half point of improvement for young Jonathan. But listen, Stroman's been great this year. I think a good player to spotlight, a guy that, it almost seemed like he had lost his way, that he was a very good pitcher for a long time and then kind of fell off and has really regained form. You wonder with this Cubs team who looking now is 500 on the year, and they looks like they have some talent. They have a guy with Cody Bellinger even. I don't know if he's been highlighted last week.
Bellinger comeback season.
Yeah, but I mean the Cubs have guys that if they fall out of it would be some interesting trade pieces, or they could be buyers and add to that team. I think it could be a fun summer on the north side.
John says intentionally done, Thomas. So, I don't know if you needed that clarification.
Kudos.
But yeah, showing off a nice start. We're going to go to his fantasy pickup, though, and we move on from Marcus Stroman to another pitcher within the National League Central. We got Colin Holderman, who was just brought up just minutes ago by Corey. Colin Holderman, 3.21 ERA. He's leading the league in holds. And you got to love it. The man with the name Hold, with the hold in his last name, leading the league with 9 holds. Colin Holderman for those first place Pittsburgh Pirates. Second time we're mentioning a Pirate on the show here, yep. Tom. But Joe, what do we think of Colin Holderman, the ex-New York Met?
Yeah, I mean, he's doing a great job. Pirates have kind of taken everybody by surprise. And remember, as far as fantasy is concerned, especially if you're in a deeper league, you're one injury away from Bedard for this guy becoming the closer for the Pirates. So it's a great pickup. If you have a categories league and holds like categories like our Yahoo league, that's a great option to have, and he can help your team. He's been fantastic. So unfortunately, the Mets could use him, but he's not there, is he?
Listen, I don't know if you could really say it's a good pickup. John's track record of his last few fantasy pickups have been pretty bad. Since Joey Lucchese's great first start, he has a 6.75 ERA in 3 games. That's pretty doo-doo. And O'Hoppe got O'Hurdy. So, listen, if you have Holderman, I would say time to sell high on Holderman.
Ooh.
Get someone else, because this guy is having Tommy John in the next 7 to 10 days.
Come on.
I'll tell you
That's not my fault. John did it. Don't blame me for John just putting the kibosh on yet another promising player.
A weekly version of the MLB The Show cover curse.
This is the Madden curse.
Yeah,
this is the Madden curse on Empire State of Baseball. But yeah, it is kind of funny that those 3 guys went down the way they have, the Casey struggles. So we'll see how Holderman holds it together over the next few weeks.
I'm rooting for him. I don't want to see the man get hurt or just fall off the face of the earth. But
you just predicted that his season was going to end within the next time he makes an appearance.
John predicted it because John picked him as the pickup. I'm just pointing out John's bad track record.
And I'm just here for the baseball puns. I love that Holderman leads and holds. So
yeah, absolutely. That's what I was all about. I love the pick, John. Very good. Well, I acknowledge my curse, but Rich sucks at all. Yes, I do. Don't worry. We'll get that audio figured out over the next 2 weeks. You're going to sound beautiful in a couple weeks time. So,
Pars just picked up Colin Holderman in our fantasy league. So there you go.
Wow. Look at that. See, we're working quick here. Thank you for that, John. And thank you for that, Pars. The Fantasy Hot Corner working in strides. Yeah, I know. Holderman will be on the IL soon. All righty. Well, anyway, our audio is pretty good on Twitch. You want to know why? Because we have a few listeners. We have some good participation in our chat right now. So, Tom, best way for them to view us on Twitch?
Well, if you're watching us on Twitch, you've already figured it out, so kudos to you. But if you are watching us on the replay on YouTube, you definitely want to download the Twitch app and subscribe to Empire State of Baseball. It's where you can get involved in our live chat and maybe have your comments read out on the show. The link to our Twitch is in our link tree on both of our Instagram and Twitters that Joe mentioned earlier.
Isn't that so cool? It pops up in the phone just like that. A push notification. It's not the alarm you want to silence, though. You want to click that as soon as you see it and jump in for the live stream every Monday or even a given Tuesday, depending on our schedule. So very good stuff there. We're going to move on. We talked about the Mets at length. So it's time to burn the Bronx. Right. Not really, obviously, but we're going to get into the Yankees. Sure. The New York Yankees, well, we were looking. It was looking hopeful for a little bit there, Thomas. Yesterday, when the Yanks had a 6-0 lead, their best pitcher, one of the best pitchers in all of baseball right now, on the mound, only a few outs away from winning and stealing a series at the Trop, and honestly, in a series that I went into the weekend thinking, hey, we take one game, I'll take that against Tampa Bay Rays. But to be in it for 3 games in a row and lose the way they lost on Sunday was just pitiful.
I got to say, I'm just obviously just disappointed that a game they're up 6-0 Cole on the mound. And, it's hard to kill Cole. He's been so good this year. He's not going to be perfect all year, but that was very disappointing to see him just really fall apart there. I was ready to just become a true Twitter terrorist on the ESB account and just go to every Rays thing I could find and just poke the bear about how they can lose to such a pitiful bunch of losers that the New York Yankees are and how embarrassing that might be. And then the Yankees blew it. So, everyone was saved from that. But yeah, they should have won Friday, drop ball in the outfield. Saturday game they should have lost, probably won. And then Sunday, that was about as locked up as you could want for the 2023 Yankees. 6-0 lead, Cole on the mound. I know there's been a lot of questioning of Boone leaving Cole in that game. I think it's a tough call because Cole's been the best pitcher in baseball this year, and yeah, he didn't look great, but at the same time, like what else? He's your best pitcher. It was the 5th inning. It was the 6th inning. I didn't really disagree with the decision. Hindsight is 2020. There, Rich, did you have any thoughts on leaving Cole in after he was starting to look a little worn?
I mean, it's going to sound like Monday morning quarterbacking, literally, but I think you literally pulled them a batter too late. I think they had their opportunity. Bencourt comes up with tying runs at the plate. Cole looked gassed in the beginning of that inning, and I don't even think he should have been out there to start. But clearly that's another move, and we've talked about this plenty of times, where the Yankees coach the game before the game starts. And they know Cole is one of the probably only pitchers in the Yankees rotation that's allowed to see the opposing team's lineup 3 times in the order. We can get into the whole Domingo Germán thing. At this rate, it's old news. But you knew that there was a pitching plan in place for Germán where he was not going to see another batter if somebody got on. And in this case with Cole, he was going to go through 3 times in the order because he's Garrett Cole. This time, again, this wasn't managed on the field. This was managed. You had your eyes on the field, but you had your brain in the front office. It was a frustrating loss. He shouldn't have been out there. The Yankees bullpen has been good enough, Tom, where they're one of the tops in the American League. Believe it or not, without a closer, the Yankees have the best bullpen ERA in the American League, and that's a fact. It's crazy to think that with everything that's been going on and some of the losses they've had.
Listen, Rich, I don't think it'd be crazy. I think you and I both
they should have went to their pen.
I think you and I had probably the biggest faith in the bullpen other than Aaron Judge going into this season. We were believers in the bullpen. They have been good. Guys like Marinaccio have been good. And, the breakout of a guy like Ian Hamilton has been awesome to see. Getting to see him get that close on Saturday was a ton of fun. But yeah, man, it's kind of same old story of what Corey and Joe was just saying. Pitching good, offense bad, pitching good tonight. Up and down. The Yankees they had a 2-0 lead, and then they just gave it right back. Glaber just hit a home run a few minutes ago, so they took the lead back 3-2. But I don't know. Again, I feel like the same conversation we just had about the Mets. The Yankees are playing the A's right now. For is it 3 or 4 games? Is it a 4-game set? Isn't it? They're playing 2 4-game sets in a row,
Oakland,
right?
4 against Tampa.
Okay, so I mean, listen, sweep Oakland. I don't care. I don't care how bad the Yankees have been. Oakland is pathetic. You're home, sweep them. You need to sweep them. You need to. I know the Yankees are half of or a quarter of a team right now with all the injuries. Judge coming back tomorrow, but
Thomas,
wins.
we're not supposed to talk about the Oakland Athletics. Let's move the conversation along.
True.
No,
listen, you got to win these games because games in May count the same as games in September. I know the pressure isn't the same, but at the end of the year, they count all the games equally. So these are games. If you want to be in the playoff hunt later this year, you need to win games now. The Yankees have just been hovering around 500, and they need to get some wins under their belt. So that way, when Tampa comes in and probably sweeps them, you don't feel as bad about it.
I'm going to toss this question to Joe and Corey because I know Joe's answer to this one. Aaron Judge gets activated off the IL tomorrow. How much is Judge's presence going to change things for this current Yankees team?
Oh, I mean, it's going to be a big help. He's got to start hitting because he hasn't hit all that. He hasn't been the Judge that we saw last year yet this year. But I mean, that's a huge difference. I mean, right now, the Yankees might have the worst outfield in the entire league at the moment. So getting that bat back and putting that in right field every single day, is going to be an immense, top 5 hitter in baseball. But the Yankees, again, it was the same problem before Judge went down, is this cannot be a one-man show lineup. And they got to figure out a way to get some runs and get some quality at-bats in and around Judge. I think Bader's back. Having Bader in center field, maybe possibly batting leadoff, I think that's a positive. I think Judge should slide to the 3-hole, and you attempt to have a lineup at the top of Bader and maybe DJ or somebody like that. Try to generate more traffic in front of Judge. If Judge is batting second all the time and half the time he's coming up with nobody on, that doesn't do you any good. If you bat him third.
God, I hate agreeing with you, Joe, but yes.
If you bat him third, you give him another opportunity to have a guy in front of him on there. So I think that's got to – I think we got to get away from this. Your best player bats second because he gets more at-bats. Your best player needs more traffic on the bases, and he needs it earlier in games. Correct. Because you need to put yourself in a position when you're ahead, not behind.
That's exactly it. Yeah. So if Judge hits second, maybe he gets an extra 20 at bats, 30 at bats a year. But how many more times does he have no one on in front of him?
True.
So many solo shots. You need guys on for him to drive in. Yeah. That's what he needs to do. And I hate that he hits there. I'd rather him third probably third. I mean, fourth would be. You're asking a little much if the Yankees.
I think third is the perfect
you could
spot.
do it, but no, third is where
third's the perfect spot. You have Rizzo who can bat fourth, who's batted fourth for most of his career. He's the lefty. That helps break up the lineup a little bit. I think that works perfectly.
I didn't even find Rizzo second. I'd be fine if
you could do that too.
You could do that. I like DJ in the 2-hole myself, but I could see that too. I think Rizzo bat in third because it's Yankee Stadium, because you got the short porch, and he's a lefty. That adds more protection than DJ would. I think people would rather face DJ than him, whereas Rizzo, that at least gets you nervous, especially with a right-hander on the mound, of pitching around Judge quickly.
Yeah, they're a broken team right now. It seems, and this is like we're really beating a dead horse here, but it just seems like a team that has been broken for years, that they have just kind of put Band-Aid upon Band-Aid on. And, I don't know, maybe this could be those cracks that are shown that they're going to have to really address and really fix the issues, as opposed to just kind of bringing in another righty bat who should hit for power but doesn't. And then you just have a lineup full of those guys.
Yeah. And I think with Judge coming back too, I mean, if your team right now, which is still surprising because it's not the Yankee team I know growing up, The Yankees right now are a bottom tier team in terms of OPS. You know, their team OPS right now is in the 600s.
When you have Willie Calhoun hitting fifth, that says a lot about where the lineup is. And, you know, there's been a lot of injuries, you know, not to just excuse them, but there has been a ton of injuries to this lineup. Not that the guys who were, you know, there before were letting the world on fire, though. So
so you know,
advantage of being a left-handed bat though in the lineup, Tom. And they always, even for a guy like Willie Calhoun or even a Jake Bauers, like those kind of guys will always project towards the middle of the order because they just need that breakup towards the top half of the batting order. You don't want to store any of those guys at the bottom. It's just amazing. This Yankees team has one of the greatest advantages in all sports, and their team is predominantly right-handed. It's just it's mind-boggling to me. But every time players go down, you get excited because you know somebody who's coming up is most likely going to be a left-handed bat because you just don't get to see it often. I actually have a hot take, though. Aaron Judge gets activated tomorrow. Obviously, that means someone's going to either bite the DFA or someone's going to get optioned. Now, I could say the easy move is Jake Bauers. If he has options, we'll get optioned down. He just came up last week. But wouldn't it set such a precedent in that clubhouse if Aaron Boone pulls Aaron Hicks and says you're done, and they
it's not going to be Aaron Boone doing that. So,
I don't know who's going to have the conversation, but could you imagine the shakeup that the first of all, to award that kind of mediocrity to stay on the team, besides the fact that he's making $10.5 million, it would shake things up in that clubhouse if they let him go. Willie Calhoun has been a nice little bench piece, and he's done a solid job. He's had some clutch hits. Jake Bauers, even though he hasn't had a couple of bats, listen, his first play in the first inning last week, he put his body on the line and was day-to-day making a catch down the left field line that we all know that Aaron Hicks would have gave up on easily. I think
he then also dropped the ball on Friday that he should have. Right, that was him in left field. That a ball that should have been caught in men's league softball. That
like Aaron Hicks would have made that catch too. Like
maybe
Hicks, is done.
And that would be a move to excite the fan base, too. You want to talk about getting some pure excitement. I mean, the Yankee Twitterverse will be throwing up the RepBX hashtag left and right with that move.
Hicks just look, he's done.
Tom, for whatever reason, I feel good about it. I feel like this is going to be one of those moves that could shake things up.
I think it is a move that could shake. I do think it's a move that could shake things up. I just don't think they're going to do it. That's not what the Yankees do. The Yankees don't do that to guys for better or worse.
I think it's like $10.6 million a year for the next 3 years.
Yeah, so he's owed almost $34 million. The Yankees aren't going to do that. They're unless he gets to the point where it's so bad.
It is so bad right now.
I know it's bad, but
it's so bad right now.
They're not going to.
And he's still playing. He's still starting. He's starting today.
And not for nothing.
His last start in pinstripe.
The replacement guys for him aren't exactly world beaters either.
I know you guys like them. Or Bauers or Cabrera or IKF over
None of these guys are hitting well.
Waldo is also
these guys are world beaters.
He does nothing. Can somebody tell me what Aaron Hicks does for the Yankees? I want to know. Can someone tell me?
He draws walks sometimes.
Nothing. He does nothing. He means nothing. He's a nothing personality. He's got a nothing bat. He's got a nothing glove. He's got a nothing contract. He needs to go.
He's apparently a very good golfer. So I don't know if the Yankees have like a team scramble they do, like a charity event, and like, listen, we need Aaron out here because, you know, man's a stick. I don't know. Maybe that could be it. But listen, the longer they hold on to Aaron Hicks, and I know we touched on this about a month ago when the D-backs DFA'd Madison Bumgarner, and when a team like the D-backs can eat a lot of money to send home a guy who's been, you know, struggling, and the Yankees aren't. I don't think it's a money thing. Listen, the Yankees have as much money as an organization as any team in baseball. I know Cohen has more money, but the valuation of the Yankees, they still have the most capital in all of sports. They just don't treat veterans that way. That's just not their MO. They've never been that. They don't want to quote unquote embarrass a guy by DFAing him. And you know, I think that helps them in certain ways to be a friendly place for veterans to go. But yeah, push comes to shove, Aaron Hicks has to go. I just don't think he's going to. I think he's going to stay on this team.
A year and a half left of his contract, Tom.
Rich, I'm not saying I want to keep him. I'm telling you they're going to. Don't blame me.
I think this is the opportunity. I think you have to take into account how bad the play has been. It would set a precedent. And I'm not saying it as a WFAN caller saying, oh, whatever, eat the 10.5. Because for years I said there's no way they're going to. And that's kind of speaking on the organizational philosophy. I'm saying now with everything going wrong with the team, it would stir the pot if they do let them go.
But I think
it's unfair to punish Bowers and Calhoun who played their hearts out over the last few weeks. I truly do. We'll see what happens. We're going to move on. Okay, well, we're not going to move on. Joe's got a point.
My only thing with the Hicks thing is the replacements for him are not compelling. As Waldo Cabrera is not a good player.
He got the AL home run champion.
He's a replacement player. He's a bench piece. I'm not worried about.
No, I understand, but you're not going to be on the hook for $30 million to replace him with a bench piece. If you have a prospect that's pushing him out, that's different. But when you have guys that are just as bad as he is, they're not going to do it.
Joe, I would pay $10.6 million to stir some heads in that clubhouse. I think that's
well. You know what? You know what the stir in the head is. You know who's a useless body that's taking up space right now? Let's be real. Gleyber Torres is useless to this team. He's not stepped up at all. I know he just did a home run.
Like not too long ago.
40. He doesn't help you. He doesn't step up. It's the same old crap with him. Trade him too. You can't trade Hicks, but trade him. Get a lefty bat.
Well, I'll tell you what. If they cut Hicks, or if they
Joe's point, Joe, stop. Just stop.
I will say, regardless, if they cut Hicks, if they trade Gleyber, whatever the move is,
Gleyber with a 770 OPS right now, which is not. I'm not telling you that's amazing, but to say a 770 OPS is nothing.
Yeah, but can the guy step up? Everybody's hurt around him. Can he step up and be the guy in that lineup for once in his life? And the answer is no, he can't.
I mean, he did.
And that's my problem with Torres. The Yankees were built around Judge and Torres is not held. Torres is a
Yankees weren't built around Gleyber Torres.
Is a borderline mediocre player. That's what he is.
Regardless of what the move ends up being to activate Judge, we know Twitter is going to go wild. And if you want to follow us on Twitter, we can follow our account at ESB Podcast. We've been very active on Twitter. Love the Twitter support lately. Keep it up out there, ESB Universe. You can follow myself at G Gory, Joe at JR Pugs, Rich at Rich J Rivera, and Mr. Tommaso at T Wospil on Twitter. 1,000 plus followers and growing every day. We love the support interacting with you on there. So we look forward to keep in touch online. But we do have another great segment coming up, though, Rich. We got a good old trick of the trade. Why don't you start us up here for Trick?
Yeah, we got trick of the trade and our updated standings in the ticker below, where me and Thomas, the Savages in the Bronx leading the charge with 2 points, Corey and Joe, and our guest spot tied with 1 there. So let's see if either Corey, Joe can make it a tie game across the board. And remember, for those who are giving the questions, if nobody gets it, they get the point. So here we go. Trick of the trade. Joe, I know you have tonight's trick of the trade on the Mets side. So what do you got?
Okay, so this trade happened August 15, 2002, which means this was a waiver wire trade. Sean Estes was traded from the Mets to the Reds, along with cash considerations. And most of these guys were players to be named later, but the one big piece that came back would be a Met and then one day an actual Yankee. So who is this player? And that's already your first hint.
That's just perked Tom's ears when he said eventual Yankee.
I do have another hint or two in case we need it.
Let's see. Red. It was a player we need.
Well, I think Joe never screwed his call by just making like Raul Clark the answer here. So
those 3 guys were. I think only one of the Clarks was actually traded, and the Beltre and the other
Clark Schmidt. That's who it was.
Players to be named.
So what? You give me a false trade here, Joe? What is this?
What are you talking about?
Forget it. So Beltre, Clark, and Clark.
Yeah, 2 of those guys were players to be named later. This one was actually not a player to be named.
So this guy wasn't. So he
was the main piece of this trade.
Main piece of this trade. I was gonna say Dave Weber.
I'd hope. I hope I wasn't guessing Elvin Beltre today. Red Nets. I'll just start it off. Let's go with Rich Aurelia.
No.
I keep want to say Paul Casey because when I think of those Reds, but I know it wouldn't be Paul Casey. It might be too early for him.
You thinking Sean Casey?
Ken Griffey Jr. Sean Casey.
Bronson Arroyo.
No, Arroyo
was a Red.
Arroyo was a Red
after a Red Sox though.
Yeah, not Dave
Reds,
Weathers.
Mets, Yanks. Not Miguel Cairo, right?
No, it's a good call though. Love that call.
I did too. That's why I guessed it. Todd Zeal.
No.
Enrique Wilson.
No.
Did we confirm if it was a
Kareem Garcia?
Kareem Garcia. Damn it! Isn't it?
It is a pitcher.
A pitcher. Okay.
Of course, as I mentioned, the chat is also. It's not Sterling Hitchcock.
Never know. He came
Chat
back.
could also guess here, and they're in their own standings bracket. So I'll be looking for your answers after this is over.
Braden Looper.
No. Right shirt.
That's a great guess.
Mike Stan.
No.
Was a pitcher.
I have
Scott Strickland.
A Met Yankee pitcher.
Again, right church, wrong pew.
Right church, wrong
Tom
pew.
Gordon.
No.
I
got one more hint.
Aaron Harang.
No.
Ooh.
I feel like we're really putting some good guesses out there. I don't know if we are, but I feel like we are.
Go Reds.
I got.
I don't know if any of these guys are Reds.
Give you one more hint.
Okay.
This guy actually holds a major league record.
Hold a major
record. I think it's a major league. It's definitely a modern one.
Major league record. What the hell?
The Yankee part was throwing
Philip
me.
Humber. No, it's way too early for that.
A little early, but yeah, not bad.
A little early on that one. Record. Chris Benson?
Eddie Guardo.
No,
not every day, Eddie.
Not Eddie. Every day, Eddie.
I've been pumped with Eddie.
I'm not looking at the chat, but I also see no comments coming into the chat.
Yeah,
so
chat is stumped.
I think we have to give this one to Joe. I mean, I think
this one. I'm tapped out.
All right, I'll give you the obvious hint. I'll take the point, but I'll give you one more hint that's I couldn't give you because it would give it away. This player signed with the Yankees, but never pitched in a game for the Yankees. And relatively recently, too.
I'd say Carl Pavano, but we know it's not.
I wish K. Gowan never pitched for the Yankees, but
never pitched a game for the Yankees.
Darren O'Day?
No, he pitched.
Oh, he did pitch, right? It was minimally.
Never pitched.
No, I'll tell you, wasn't. I'm sorry, it wasn't a major league record. He was third all time in that statistic, but it is Pedro Feliciano.
Oh!
I was gonna guess
Rest in peace,
Pedro, but I didn't.
Pedro Feliciano. Yeah. I thought the Yankee not playing a game for the Yankees would give it away because he was the Mets didn't want to re-sign him because they knew they cooked his arm. Yeah. The Yankees took the bait. They signed him.
I think it's significant enough where Joe gets the point, though. It's not a Lenny Harris situation here.
Correct.
So,
that was a good trade.
I led the league in appearances.
That's a credible player.
That was a good trade.
All right, Tom, what do you got?
I don't know. What do I got? Let's see. Is it on the screen? All right. So this is back in 1 year later. We have the New York Yankees at the time. I remember being excited about this Javier Vasquez acquisition. Don't think it really worked out super great from what I remember. The Yankees, the Montreal Expos, Randy Choate, reliever, and Juan Rivera. And there was another guy in this trade.
So this is the day after my 12th birthday, which is awesome.
Day after your 12th birthday.
And what
you got? Javier Vasquez. Which let's see. Some Javier Vasquez.
Randy Choate. Juan Rivera, no relation. Who was the guy in this one? I don't know if I'm mixing up deals, but is this Jake Westbrook?
It's not the Jake Westbrook.
Tony Armas Jr.
It's not.
I'm just thinking of that early era national first year.
All right, well, if we're gonna do that, let's go Zach Day.
It's not Zach Day. By the way, Javier Vasquez, what a career he put together. Honestly, pretty good. He actually was good for the. He actually was good for the Yankees.
Not a bad career at all.
Hitter or pitcher?
Hitter.
Brad Wilkerson.
Not Brad Wilkerson.
Dioner Navarro.
Nah, that'd probably been later on, but no, not Dioner Navarro.
Alex Cintron.
No, he was in some other trade.
Not Alex Cintron, no.
So they traded for a relief pitcher. I think Choate was still a relief pitcher.
He was a reliever. I think he was always.
Juan Rivera, the outfielder. So who else would they?
It was a kind of a bigger.
I guess would be an infielder of sorts.
This is a guy who I guess I'll give my first hint here. He is a player who would later return to the Yankees.
I got it. Nick Johnson.
Nick Johnson.
Good guess.
Let's go.
I was actually thinking that too.
Good guess.
Nick Johnson. Yep. That last guess did it.
Nick Johnson would go back to become a national at one point, right?
And mini rant that happened back.
Well, he became a national when
the signing was made.
He became a national when they moved to Montreal, or Montreal moved to Washington.
So the funny part about Nick Johnson, when the Yankees signed him, this was the year that Matsui and Johnny Damon were both walking. And they had said that they wanted to use the DH as a flex position, so they let both those players walk who probably would have fulfilled that position. All signed Nick Johnson, who did exactly that. So what the hell were they thinking then? And he stunk in his second time around with the Yankees.
Yeah, it wasn't great. It wasn't great. It was good. The Yankees, I feel like in that era, they kept doing moves like that. Like they're bringing back Soriano. It was just kind of like, hey, it was real member berries. Time for the Yankees.
Treads.
Old treads, or just old. I mean, the Yankees have always brought in like old veterans, but it was in that time frame. It's like, remember?
And I tell you what, off the not on topic, but off the Yankees. Looking at that old Montreal Expos logo, doesn't that give you a little nostalgia?
Yeah.
Don't you wish you kind of see that logo for maybe a future expansion team?
Makes part of my body move a little bit.
It's making me think of MVP 2004, because I think that was the last year with the Expos in the game, with Albert Pujols on the cover.
Absolutely.
Love me
so we're gonna get this thing wrapped up soon, and before I toss it to Corey for the close, make sure to subscribe and like our videos on YouTube. We have a lot of great content on that. Of course, all our episodes are up there, including this one that will be uploaded tonight, and our shorts, which are our Instagram reels, our recaps, our Mets Minute, our River Ave Rewind. They're up as YouTube shorts on our YouTube page. So make sure to like, share, subscribe, and comment. We're looking at all your comments. I get the notifications when somebody's commenting and giving Joe a hard time for his poor points on the Mets. So make sure to give us some love on YouTube. Corey, let's wrap this thing up.
Yeah, listen, I want to thank everybody for coming tonight, listening in. For those of you listening to us later on YouTube, thank you again for your support. Love to follow you. We'll be back next week, Monday, 8 o'clock, normal show for us next week. And again, definitely join on Twitter with us, interact, because when they cut Hicks this week, or the Mets call up Ronnie Mauricio, or the Mets actually get a quality start, we're going to be going nuts on Twitter. So definitely tune in, everybody. Listen in. Love to chat with you. Joe, any closing thoughts before we wrap?
No, I'm just hoping the Mets can right the ship a little bit this week as they start to get some stability. So we'll see what happens, in the coming days. But, fingers crossed, and we'll see what happens this week.
Tom, over to you.
I'm going to be honest. I'm just kind of like going down the rabbit hole of Javier Vasquez's baseball reference. Javier Vasquez has been part of some trades, man. So the Yankees then traded him in the Randy Johnson trade. He was also then later, when he came back to the Yankees, he was traded for Melky Cabrera. Just a lot of interesting names in his transaction chart. So I have no idea what's
I'm giving up all his trick of the trade options for the future.
Yep. Rich.
I know, amazing. You can find all these trades, right, Tom, out of nowhere. That's so crazy. But anyway, yep, guys, thank you for coming out to the show. We really do appreciate it. We will see you here next week for the show, and I'm going to toss it for Corey for the final words and wisdom there. But please pray for Colin Holderman, who is the Fantasy Hot Corners pickup of the week. Please pray for Colin Holderman. Corey?
Everybody, pray for Holderman. Pray for the Yankees. Pray for the Mets. Pray for anything New York, because New York sports cannot buy a win this week. So hopefully at least one of our teams gets one. We'll see you Monday. Do not go Devils. We will talk to you on Monday. More to come. Everybody, take care.